Hi, I'm Ujjaini and I'm with the Company. I'm excited to speak with y'all today about how the internet can become a more people-centric space. Firstly, to introduce myself, I am a freshman CS student at the University of Texas at Austin, down in Texas, and I actually joined the Company very recently in about early September, so it's been about a month. I first got introduced to the Company and basically just ideas about encryption in general at the 2021 hackathon hosted by the Company called Fire Attack. It was very centered around like keeping track of secure medical records, and it really allowed me to get like a new perspective on how the medical industry or like IT in medicine can be enhanced by things like what the Company offers. And lastly, I'm very committed to upholding people, putting people first, saying like people rather than users, and empowering people. And I feel like the Company is really centered around that as well. And that's why I'm really excited to talk to y'all today about what we do and our mission. So I just want to talk about today's internet architecture. Earlier, when I introduced myself, I said that we are trying to make the internet a more people-centric space. So now, why do we say this? Increasingly, and as you can see here, the internet has become a place where people are no longer treated as people, but more as products. People are defined on the internet by various different pieces of data on multiple different platforms, such as phone numbers, social media handles, emails, and addresses, and other things that are just marketing points and pieces of data that corporations or companies can use to basically use you as a business point, right? And it's scattered across, as you can see from this diagram, it's scattered across multiple different areas. And if you really think about it, there's so much data out there about you on so many different platforms. And in the end, none of it really belongs to you. All of these copies of your data are handled and stored by different vendors on different platforms, with different privacy agreements, with different passwords and usernames, and none of it is truly yours. And if you think about it a little further, if anyone were to redesign the internet today, nobody would do it like this. This architecture of how the internet is designed is hugely ineffective. For example, how many places do you have to have information updated about yourself? Like your social data, your shopping data, your banking data, your work data. There are so many copies of your own data out there. If you need to, say, change your home address for something, you would have to fill out countless numbers of forms, update it on countless different platforms. And how would you even be able to accurately reflect this change at the end of the day? At the end of the day, it would be wholly inconsistent and outdated, a representation of you on the internet on multiple different platforms that isn't, again, lastly, is none of yours. Again, none of it is actually your data. And so this is where an @ comes in. And if you look at this, it's a lot less chaotic. And we like to call this flipping the internet. Instead of multiple different sources having data about you, you have your data that you can allow to be accessed by multiple different sources. Again, it's people-centric, and you are the person that owns your own data. Instead of you having to change data, let's say for changing your home address in the previous example, you are empowered yourself to be able to allow permission to share your data as one single source of truth. Simply put, an @ is like your consolidated single internet identity. Instead of having various different copies of your data, again, which is outdated, an @ allows you to represent yourself as just a string. At Ujjaini, at Barbara, at Jen, at Anthony, at Luminous Wombat, whatever it may be. And again, most importantly, and I cannot reiterate this enough, you own your own data with an @ You have the ability to store information tied to your @ only and share it only with people that you trust and that you approve of having your data. And now this is wholly different from how the internet is structured today, with your data basically being everywhere in places that you might not even be keeping track of, right? Not only is storing your data with an @ convenient and consistent, at the end of the day, it's safe and more humane. It's people-centric, and it prioritizes your own privacy. Now, let's talk a little bit more about what underlies this @ We call it the platform, and it's a unique architecture where people, again, own their own data, and it's hyper-connected through multiple different apps or different applications where you can transfer your data for different uses. But again, at the end of the day, it's all owned and handled by you as a secondary server. And usually, we can talk a little bit more about this. Like usually when you need to, let's say, plan out an outing with your friends. Let's say in this example that we use on this slide, we are going on a hiking trip with our friends. And usually when you are trying to communicate with other people, you will have different, let's say some people have Android, some people have Apples. That will be a cause of inconsistency. You will have to probably use multiple different things to do multiple different applications, like sharing photos, sharing locations, sharing messages, and that each has its own username and password. And then there are things like file size limitations and areas where, again, you don't really own your own data and you have to just have it out there for everyone to see, and no privacy or nothing of that manner instilled into it. But let's talk a little bit about how this can be changed if we just had everything hyper-connected with apps that are under the app platform. So when you're planning your hiking trip, you will want to talk to people and share data, which is in the form of messages, with, again, people that you trust, that you approve of sharing messages with, and again, only through your @ let's say you want to take a vote. You can take a vote with a voting application, which again just uses your @ to log your vote about where you want to go, what time you want to meet, other logistical things about what your outing is going to entail. And once you actually get there, like the example we used before, you want to share your location with people that you approve of. This is, again, a piece of data about you that you can share with other people only if you are comfortable sharing that and you allow that piece of data to be shared. And again, it's just with your @. And then let's say, and again, these are all hyper connected. So then you can share your location and then chat with them and do all of these things like that you would have needed multiple different platforms for, which would not have been secure in just one area on the app platform. And then at the end of the trip, if you have really nice pictures, then you can share them with the file sharing app like that we have called Atmosphere, again, with your @ and with people that you trust and with people that you're comfortable sharing with. And so this, again, going back to like how we talked about how this would be done in today's world, it would be wholly different with so many different passwords, so many different identification issues, and so many different inconsistencies, and your data being in places that you don't really know where it is. It's just everywhere. So this example ties into kind of how the app protocol encryption works. And simply put, the power behind the app platform lies in apps, which are powered with the app protocol. And a simple layman term definition of this is an internet protocol for the secure exchange of information only between known entities. Now, you've probably heard of end-to-end encryption before. A lot of messaging applications like to proclaim that they are end-to-end encrypted, but at the end of the day, it all goes through the company servers. Let's say, for example, WhatsApp is a really common known end-to-end encrypted messaging platform, but all the messages do go through Facebook servers. But end-to-end encryption needs to actually be end-to-end encrypted and people to people. That's what the P2P stands for, person to person, where only the people at the ends can see what is being shared and only they can control who it's being shared to. And just in case, like, people are unfamiliar with how a protocol is encrypted, in this case, the classic Bob and Alice example, we have a message from Bob to Alice saying, how are you, Alice? And unless you were at one of the two ends of the receiving or the sending side of this message, you should not be able to see the message. It should be encrypted and then decrypted once it arrives at the destination. And we can talk a little bit more of the intuition behind this and how it works and how it's really different, wholly different from other end-to-end encrypted applications. So with the app platform or the app protocol, you have a primary server, and then each user or each person, we like to say people instead of users, each person is a secondary server. We have at Bob's secondary server and at Alice's secondary server. And let's say, okay, Bob wants to message Alice. So Bob will access the primary server, and this is just to get to the address of Alice, for which he can contact Alice. So then he gets the address from the primary server, but then sends the message through, like, between the secondary servers. It doesn't go through any other cloud, any other external server that is controlled by, let's say, the ad company or by any corporation or company. And this just makes it truly end-to-end encrypted. It's truly just seen by Bob and at Alice. But let's say Alice wants to go like, is this actually Bob? We want to make sure it's Bob. So we'll do the same thing. She will do the same thing that Bob did. She will access Bob's address with the primary server, verify that, okay, you are Bob, and then be able to see his message and approve it, decline it, approve it only once, whatever she wants to. The power, again, is with her, whether or not she wants to share her data, and the same with Bob, whether or not he wants to share his data. And this is just between the two of those secondary servers. So just talking a little bit about how this can be applied to the future, our intuition on how this can be applied to the future. When our founders first started the ad company, the main motivation was, again, like I said, people, you guys. People who use the internet have been redefined for marketing purposes for far too long, to where it's kind of seen as a norm almost. There is too much of a lack of permission for storing, sharing, and doing whatever you want with people's own data, and not enough advocacy for people as people. It could be something as little as, say, having to always verify that you're not a robot every time you log into something by like clicking pictures of traffic lights or something. Again, people are not seen as people, but they should be, and that's how the internet should be. Our vision of the internet is like kind of what we like to call, as we said before, flipping the internet, having people be empowered on the internet, but also just a little something we like to say is we are internet optimists. We believe that our business model can be centered around that advocacy for individuals and for the internet to become a more humane, and at the end of the day, people having more ownership and empowerment with their own data. And with this, with the people being able to own their own data and have the power to share it with the people that they trust, at the end of the day, after this is done, the internet will be a better place for everyone. And that's kind of our goal here at the App Company. And I hope you enjoyed hearing about it. Thank you so much.